A deployed soldier receives an email from his wife. The subject line, "Let's be mature about this." Attached was a finalized divorce. But that was only the beginning of a betrayal so calculated it felt more like a military op than a marriage gone wrong. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sinclair Lena, and here we share stories that seem ordinary on the surface, about family, marriage, and work, but often reveal something raw, emotional, and unforgettable. Today's story is one I promise you won't forget. It's about Marcus Briggs, a decorated Army sergeant serving overseas, who discovers that while he's defending his country, his wife is back home emptying their bank accounts, forging his signature, and selling the life he spent 15 years building. But Marcus didn't fall apart. He fought back with strategy, silence, and precision. So sit back, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a masterclass in resilience, justice, and reclaiming everything that was stolen. There is one thing I want to mention before we begin. For some personal and sensitive reasons, I have chosen not to appear on this channel. I hope you will understand and respect that choice. Also, some of the stories here are shared by you, the viewers. I am simply retelling them with honesty, care, and deep appreciation. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or just feelings to share after listening, please feel free to leave a comment below. I read every comment and truly appreciate what you have to say. Now then, let's listen to today's story. My name is Sinclair Lena, and over the years, I've heard stories that rattled even the strongest souls. But the one I'm about to tell you, it haunted me long after it was over. I met Marcus Briggs through a mutual friend, James, a former Army lawyer now working in private practice. James and I had lunch one summer afternoon when he shared a case that was unfolding like something out of a psychological thriller. "You ever heard of a woman gutting a man's life while he was overseas in uniform?" he asked, leaning across the table. Because Marcus, he lived it. Marcus was 41, a decorated platoon sergeant with the 173rd Airborne. He was 6 months into a deployment in Al Udeid, Qatar, when the email arrived. Subject line, "Let's be mature about this." Just 5 words, clinical, calculated, cold. Attached was a PDF divorce paperwork. Finalized, filed, and initiated without so much as a phone call. No warning, no conversation. Marcus's wife of 12 years, Alicia, hadn't just decided to end the marriage. She'd already moved her new partner, Cole, into their home in Boise. Worse, she had emptied their joint accounts, including savings they'd built over a decade. When Marcus opened the app on his military-issued tablet, all he saw was balance, $9.12. It was mid-July, 112 degrees outside, and Marcus sat alone in his cot, silent. A million thoughts must have flooded his brain. Betrayal, confusion, rage. But he told James, later on, he didn't feel much of anything. It was like watching someone detonate my life from a drone feed, real but far away. His only reply to Alicia's email? One word. Noted. That's who Marcus was. Quiet, measured, precise. He wasn't one to shout or argue. He believed in actions over outbursts, so while the world burned back home, he simply got up, shaved, reported to duty, and waited. But what Alicia didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Marcus had seen this coming. 6 months before deployment, small things started to shift. Alicia, who once FaceTimed him every night, now left his messages on read. She started working late at the real estate firm, started going on weekend retreats with the girls, and even began locking her phone. He never accused her, never followed her. Instead, Marcus did what Army training had taught him to do: plan. He opened a separate account in a different bank. Quietly redirected 20% of his salary there. He secured important documents, title deeds, insurance papers, the will, from their home safe and moved them into a private lockbox at his base in Colorado. He even made copies of her email and texts. Just in case, he told himself. Then came deployment. Alicia had kissed him goodbye at the airport with the enthusiasm of someone waving off a colleague. "Stay safe, babe," she'd said with a hollow smile. He boarded the plane, and now, in this sandstorm of betrayal, he was watching every fear take root in real time. 2 days later, his phone buzzed again. A new notification: withdrawal of $87,000 from the joint account. The last of it. Gone. He didn't flinch, didn't cry. Just stood up, walked to the base communication office, and dialed James. "I need legal options," he said. "Something happened?" James asked. "She took everything, even my mother's silver." And with that, the battle began. Not one fought with rifles or sandbags, but with bank records, legal loopholes, and one man's iron determination to take back what was his. What Alicia had done wasn't just betrayal, it was strategic destruction. But Marcus, he was a soldier. And soldiers don't give up ground without a fight. I've seen heartbreak. I've seen men shattered by betrayal. But when Marcus showed me the security footage, I didn't just see pain. I saw calculation, rage simmering beneath still waters. It was late August when he gained access to the home security system. Alicia must have forgotten that Marcus still had admin rights. She thought being 7,000 miles away meant he was out of the picture. But military men know better than to leave loose ends. Marcus had installed those cameras himself, inside and outside the house. He was sitting in a dark tent in Qatar when the footage loaded. There he was, Cole, mid-30s, smug, shaggy hair, wearing Marcus's Seattle Seahawks sweatshirt, drinking from his mug, walking their dog like he'd owned the place his whole life. And Alicia? She was there too, laughing in the kitchen Marcus had personally remodeled during his last leave. The same kitchen where he'd laid the tile by hand, piece by piece, in time for her birthday. "They looked happy," Marcus told James in their next secure call. "Like I never existed." But his voice didn't shake. He wasn't a man broken. He was a man calculating. Marcus began building a plan. The enemy wasn't just Alicia. It was whatever scheme she and Cole had orchestrated, because it was starting to look like more than just a messy divorce. The next step was legal. Marcus granted James power of attorney. He requested emergency leave through his commanding officer. And most importantly, he began gathering evidence. His instincts were right. A week later, James uncovered something big. A refinance application on Marcus and Alicia's home, submitted just days after he deployed. It used Marcus's name and signature. But it wasn't his signature. The slant was off. The middle initial was missing. The apostrophe S was curved where Marcus always printed it straight. Forgery. The document authorized a $280,000 loan pulled from the home's equity. The funds were split into 3 accounts, one in Alicia's name, one in a shell company registered in Idaho, and one to an unfamiliar name. Lyle Madison. James called Marcus the moment he confirmed it. "That's felony level," he said. "We're talking fraud, identity theft, and potentially racketeering if this shell company is part of a pattern." Marcus didn't say much, just, "Get the paperwork ready. I'll be home soon." 2 weeks later, Marcus touched down in the States. No announcement, no fanfare. He didn't go home. He checked into a roadside motel under the name Andrew Kellerman, a code name from his airborne days. He met James the next morning at a diner outside Boise. "You look like hell," James said. Marcus shrugged. "Feels like it." James slid a folder across the table. Inside, copies of the forged refinance, bank statements, property liens, and a copy of the house deed with only Marcus's name, thanks to the VA loan he'd secured solo years ago. Alicia, technically, had no ownership, and then James dropped the final bomb. She tried to sell the house, he said, to a company that flips properties, cash buyers, quick closings. The real estate agent involved, Lyle Madison, that name from the account, it's him. He and Cole have worked together before. Marcus clenched his jaw. So this wasn't just about leaving me. No, James said. It was about erasing you. That night, Marcus returned to his motel and logged into the security cameras again. The living room lights were on. Cole was walking potential buyers through the space like he was the owner. The agent, Lyle, pointed at features Marcus had built. The fireplace mantel, the hand-carved banister, the bookshelves Marcus made for Alicia's birthday. They were staging his life like it was a product. "This is war," Marcus whispered. He opened a private folder on his laptop and began uploading every clip to a shared drive labeled Operation Echo. 2 days later, Marcus and James filed a formal report with the local police, then forwarded the evidence to a federal agency specializing in veteran-related fraud. VA loans are federally protected? Using one to commit fraud? That was a fast track to prison, but Marcus wasn't done. He went to the bank that approved the refinance, sat down with the manager, showed his military ID, his real signature, and the forged one. The man's face drained of color. I'll have to escalate this," he stammered. "Already did," Marcus said. "Consider this me giving you a chance to fix it before you end up in the same report I just handed the VA Office of Inspector General." That night, Alicia called for the first time in 2 months. Marcus let it go to voicemail. "Marcus, we need to talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding. The bank called me, and I don't know what's going on. I feel like everything's spiraling out of control." She sounded nervous, panicked even. Marcus saved the voicemail, labeled it Exhibit B. Later that evening, his phone buzzed again. This time, a text. "What did you do?" "Alicia, who is Lyle Madison?" Marcus 10 minutes passed. Then, "It's not what you think." He didn't reply, because by now, it was exactly what he thought. And soon, the federal investigators would think so too. The thing about men like Marcus, men forged by discipline, molded by years of military service, is that they don't make noise when they move. They observe, they adapt, they strike when the moment is right. Alicia and Cole had counted on Marcus being absent, powerless, thousands of miles away, tangled in a foreign deployment while they unraveled the life he'd spent 15 years building. But they'd made one critical mistake. They forgot Marcus was a soldier, and soldiers don't disappear, they reposition. The next morning, Marcus sat with James again, this time across from an agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A contact James had reached out to quietly. Agent Danielle Patel, clean-cut, no nonsense, with a stare like she'd seen it all, and was ready to see more. Marcus handed over a flash drive. Security footage, financial statements, property documents, forgery samples, everything's time-stamped and labeled. She plugged it into her laptop and watched a few seconds of Cole showing the house to potential buyers. Her brow lifted. "That's your property?" "VA loan in my name. I never signed the refinance." "And you were deployed at the time?" 4 months into a 9-month rotation, Marcus said. Patel nodded, glancing at James. "We've had similar reports, scattered, nothing concrete. But this could be a keystone case." They scheduled a formal deposition for the following week. But before Marcus left, Patel asked a final question. "Do you believe your wife is a willing participant or a manipulated party?" Marcus didn't answer right away. I think She started as a pawn, but somewhere along the line, she stopped asking questions. Back at his motel, Marcus watched his phone light up with missed calls. Alicia, then Cole, then a number he didn't recognize. He blocked them all. Instead, he pulled up the security cam feed again. That evening, Cole returned to the house, alone this time. He wandered from room to room like a king inspecting his stolen castle. Then, he entered the garage and climbed into Marcus's truck, the one still registered in Marcus's name, the one with military plates. Within minutes, Marcus got a call from Agent Patel. "We've got movement," she said. "Boise PD just picked up Cole driving your vehicle with a suspended license, and guess what they found in the glove box?" "What?" "Prescription pads. From a dental clinic." Marcus went cold. "Alicia's clinic?" "Yup, they weren't blank either. Looks like someone's been writing scripts." Marcus sat back in his motel chair, exhaling slowly. The situation was spiraling faster than he expected. "Do we have enough yet?" "Not quite," she replied, "but we're close." That same night, Alicia sent another message, this one a little longer. "Marcus, I know you're angry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was scared. I thought you were hiding money from me. Cole said you had offshore accounts, that you were planning to leave me with nothing. I panicked. Please, can we talk?" He read the message 3 times before replying. "Who is Lyle Madison?" No response. So he waited. 15 minutes later, her answer came in pieces. "I don't know. He's just a real estate guy. Cole handled everything. It wasn't supposed to go this far." Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he met James early the next morning at a park near their old neighborhood. The same neighborhood where his life used to be normal, where the front lawn had sunflowers Alicia loved, where dogs barked at joggers and kids rode bikes until dinner. Now, it felt like a war zone, not in fire and bullets, but in deception and stolen trust. "She wants to meet," Marcus said. James narrowed his eyes. "Don't. It's a trap. Or worse, a distraction." "I'm not going, but I want to know what she's doing while she thinks I'm at Riverfront Park." Together, they parked down the street from the house. Waited. At 9:47 a.m., Alicia walked out, dressed nicely, makeup on, like she was going to church or a peace negotiation. "She's headed to the park," Marcus said, watching her car drive away. Minutes later, a white sedan pulled into the driveway, real estate logo on the door. Out stepped Lyle Madison, then Cole, grinning like a man about to close a deal. Marcus handed James his phone. "Interior cameras are live." They watched as Lyle paced through the house, pointing to features. Marcus's features. The woodwork. The custom pantry shelves. The mantel. Cole followed behind like a realtor's assistant. Marcus turned up the audio. "Should list by the end of the week," Lyle was saying. "Got a buyer lined up. Cash, like usual." "How much?" "We list at $460. He'll come in at $420. Everyone's happy." "And the husband?" Lyle chuckled. "Military guys always make a little noise, then disappear. He'll take a settlement. They always do." James was already recording. "We've got it." Marcus didn't blink. "Send it to Patel." 30 minutes later, unmarked SUVs surrounded the property. Marcus and James watched from a distance as federal agents moved in. Lyle and Cole were escorted out in cuffs. Alicia wasn't home to see it, but she'd know soon enough. Agent Patel called that evening. "We got it. Conspiracy, wire fraud, property fraud. It's all there. Your footage nailed them." "And Alicia?" "She showed up at the scene mid-raid. She's shaken." "She should be. We're not charging her. Yet. Depends on her cooperation and your statement." That night, Marcus sat on the edge of his motel bed, finally letting himself feel something. Not pain, not satisfaction. Something else. Control. For the first time in months, the power was back in his hands. His home, his name, his future. No one was stealing it anymore. And this war? He was winning. I've always believed betrayal doesn't happen in a single moment. It grows in silence, in the gaps between what's said and what's meant. And for Marcus, that silence had screamed for years. But what he discovered after the arrests, that was something else entirely. 2 days after the FBI raid, Marcus sat across from Agent Patel and Agent Donovan in a federal field office outside Boise. His hand rested on a thick stack of documentation. Statements, emails, logs, everything meticulously compiled, dated, and signed. "You're helping us establish a pattern," Patel said. "Not just Cole and Lyle, but a wider ring. They've been targeting deployed servicemen, particularly those with VA-backed homes and visible online deployments." Donovan leaned forward. "We're building charges that stretch across state lines. You're not just a victim here, Mr. Briggs. You're a critical piece of a conspiracy case." "Conspiracy?" Marcus asked. "You're saying this was coordinated?" "Yes," Patel replied. "We believe your wife's boyfriend, Cole Davis, worked with Madison to exploit women in crumbling military marriages. Women like Alicia." "And you think she was just another pawn?" Marcus asked. Donovan hesitated. "We're still evaluating her level of knowledge, but we did a deep dive into Alicia's phone records, her texts, her emails." Patel slid a folder across the table. "She was more involved than we thought." Marcus opened it slowly. Inside were screenshots, conversations between Alicia and Cole, real estate documents where she'd signed off as co-seller, illegally, even a rough timeline she and Cole had written, plotting Marcus's deployment date, the refinancing paperwork, and the optimal window to sell. His heart didn't break this time. It hardened. "She planned this?" he asked quietly. Patel nodded. "She claims Cole manipulated her, but this file says otherwise." Marcus stared at a photo from the feed. Cole in his sweatshirt, his coffee mug, his dog. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft of identity, of trust, of history. "I want restitution," Marcus said, "and I want her to understand what she's done." Patel exchanged a look with Donovan. "You'll get both, but you'll have to sign off on a limited prosecution agreement if you want to avoid taking this to trial." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it so she can never do this to anyone else." That afternoon, James and Marcus returned to the county clerk's office and filed a civil injunction freezing all transactions related to the property. Then they met with the bank manager responsible for greenlighting the refinance. When Marcus showed him the forged signature and ID match records, the man went pale. "We're going to initiate a full review," he stammered. "You'll also return the portion of the refinance funds used fraudulently," James added. "Or we take this to federal court." That same day, Marcus received a new voicemail from Alicia. Her voice was shaking. "Marcus, please. I didn't know what was happening. Cole handled everything. He told me this was normal. I thought you were hiding things from me. I panicked. I didn't know he was lying." But Marcus knew better, because in the screenshots, she wasn't just panicking. She was participating. A week later, they met for mediation. Alicia walked in looking thinner, frailer. The confidence she once wore like perfume was gone. She avoided Marcus's eyes the entire time. She agreed to forfeit any rights to the house, repay all funds withdrawn from the joint accounts, sign a confession of forgery for the refinance, surrender claims to Marcus's military pension, Cooperate fully with federal investigators. It was over in less than 30 minutes. When they stepped outside, Alicia called out softly, "Marcus." He stopped but didn't turn. "I never meant to destroy you." He spoke without facing her. "You didn't destroy me, you freed me." And with that, he walked away. 3 months later, the federal case went to court. Cole Davis pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and identity theft. 8 years. Lyle Madison got 12. He'd done it before and left a trail. Alicia never faced jail time, but her confession became public record. Her license at the real estate firm revoked. Her reputation? Gone. And Marcus? He got his house back. But more importantly, he got something else. Closure. One night, after it all had settled, James and I met Marcus at a quiet bar just outside Missoula, where he'd moved. "I heard you bought land," I said. He nodded. 10 acres, a creek, no neighbors. "Starting over?" "No," he said, sipping his drink. "Starting something that no one can steal." And I believed him, because men like Marcus, they don't crumble, they rebuild. I've spent years collecting stories, some whispered in coffee shops, some passed in courtrooms, others shared under breath in hospital hallways. But there's one I always come back to, one that didn't end with revenge, but with something rarer: redemption. A year after Marcus watched the life he built burn to ash, he stood on the porch of a small cabin nestled deep in western Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of thick pine and solitude, a winding creek behind the house, and nothing but sky above. It had taken time to get here, not just legally, but emotionally. The fallout from the conspiracy made the national press in short bursts. Fraud ring targeted deployed soldiers, veterans' identity used to steal home equity, boys' woman implicated in forgery case tied to military scandal. But Marcus never gave a single interview. He declined every request for a comment. What happened to him wasn't a story for headlines. It was personal. He didn't want attention. He wanted peace. He took early retirement from the military after 20 years of service, not because he was broken, but because he knew he'd given enough. He'd served through 2 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, and 1 final deployment that cost him his marriage, but gave him back his clarity. He adopted a German shepherd named Scout, started doing light carpentry work for folks around the county, fixing sheds, building fences, patching porches. Nothing fancy, nothing that demanded more than his hands and his patience. The VA pension took care of the rest. He didn't date, didn't drink much, didn't talk about Alicia. But some nights, I'd drive up and sit on the porch with him, the silence between us saying more than words ever could. He never asked for sympathy. He just offered coffee and company and a quiet stare across the fields. Then one day, it happened. A letter, folded neatly, no return address. He read it twice before showing me. "You don't know me, but I know who you are. My name is Erica. My husband is in the Navy. While he was deployed last year, Cole Davis and Lyle Madison tried to steal our house. The FBI told me your case helped break theirs wide open. You saved our family. You fought back when most people would have just given up. I just wanted to say, thank you." Marcus didn't say anything for a long time. He just walked to the fridge, took a small magnet shaped like a bald eagle, and pinned the letter there. It stayed for months. I asked him once, late one summer evening, if he missed Alicia. "No," he said, his voice flat. "You don't even think about her?" He leaned back in his chair, watching Scout sleep at the threshold. "I think about who we were, maybe. Not who she became." "Do you hate her?" He shook his head. "That takes too much energy." I believe him, because Marcus wasn't built for hate. He was built for endurance, and that's what he'd done. Endured. Through deployments, through deception, through betrayal and beyond. And somehow, he hadn't lost his sense of self. Last I heard, Alicia moved back to Oregon, working at a small dental office again, living with her sister. She never remarried. She never contacted Marcus again. As for Cole and Lyle, both remained behind bars. Their sentences were heavy, and with Marcus's cooperation, multiple other families filed lawsuits for restitution. The web they'd spun had finally unraveled. Justice came, not in fire and fury, but in paperwork and prison bars. And Marcus? He kept building. He planted apple trees one spring, built a chicken coop in the fall. Scout kept the deer away. One autumn morning, he called me unexpectedly. "You busy?" "Number Y." "Got a new project. Thought you might want to help." I showed up that afternoon. It was a small bench. Nothing fancy, pine wood, sturdy. He carved the names of every place he'd been on the bottom side. Kandahar, Ramadi, Kabul, Al Udeid, and then Boise. He didn't say why. He didn't have to. All of it was part of the journey. Even the parts that hurt. I stood beside him as the sun dipped behind the trees, the light hitting the mountains in gold and rust. And in that moment, I understood. This story was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming. Not just the house, or the money, or the dignity, but himself. He had lost everything, yet found something greater. He found the kind of peace you can't fake. The kind no one can take. Not with betrayal, not with a forged signature, not even with a PDF divorce filed from thousands of miles away. And on his fridge, pinned forever in that quiet kitchen, was the letter from the woman he'd never met. "You saved our family." It was more than a thank you. It was a reminder that even in the deepest betrayal, someone might one day look at your scars and say, "You saved me too."